Today's episode of the podcast is sponsored by Clean Cut Meals. Clean Cut Meals offer a professional meal prep service and have various plans to suit all different needs and levels of fitness, whether you're starting your fitness journey, prepping for a show or a shoot, or play high-level sport. Clean Cut Meals are freaking awesome. I use them for the entire preparation from Marathon to Sabla last April and have been using them ever since. They're just absolutely killer for saving time. Their food is awesome and tasty. I've completely gone off script, but I love the service they provide, and there's someone I'm going to be using for a long time in the future. The guys deliver nationally, so no matter where you are in the country, they can deliver. If you want to get on board and spend the time that you save shopping, prepping, cooking, and cleaning on the other things that you love, just visit www.cleancutmeals.ie to make an order, or if you have any questions, drop the guys an email, info@cleancutmeals.ie. I'm pretty sure that is on the website, cleancutmeals.ie as well, so you can just put them into Google, search them. The links are on my social medias. The guys are absolutely awesome. Also, you can use the code BKF at the checkout to get 20% off your first order. Definitely recommend checking them out, guys. Not too many meal prep services that I can recommend to put my name to, so cannot recommend Clean Cut Meals enough. So BKF at the checkout, 20% off your first order. Regardless, go check them out on www.cleancutmeals.ie. And now ready for today's episode. I hope you enjoy it.
You're listening to the Brian Keane Fitness Podcast, where Irish fitness entrepreneur Brian Keane answers your questions and interviews leaders in the world of fitness, health, mindset, and natural wellness. Come join the fun.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Brian Keane Fitness Podcast, where we talk everything fitness, nutrition, and mindset to help you with your goals. Today's episode is a Q&A. So I've pulled these questions from Instagram mainly, one or two from the website, briankeanefitness.com. I know a lot of you are reading my blog at the minute, briankeanefitness.com/blog. I've been trying to put one up weekly or at least twice a month. And I know a lot of you enjoy reading as well and different visual content. So I hope you're enjoying that. But also there's a contact form on the website where you can send in questions for the podcast. So I've been pulling some from there and also pulling some from Instagram. So today is a Q&A, so I hope you enjoy. Again, range of topics being covered today. So be sure to hit me up on Instagram, tag me in your story, or hit me up on DM and let me know what you thought. So first question, how do I get into a calorie deficit? Like, what diet foods do I need to eat? I'm starting the gym soon, resistance training 6 days a week, along with walking 3 days a week for 30 minutes as cardio. So before I get into the training program, which is a lot there, 6 days a week of resistance training and 3 days a week of 30 minutes walking of cardio is quite a lot of training. But just so you understand calorie deficit before I talk on the training side and how to get into a deficit through diet, through food, through nutrition, or through training. You can do it through either or a combination. Calorie deficit normally just means that you're eating less calories than you're burning. So if, for example, your calorie maintenance, the amount of maintenance calories you need to consume to stay the same weight, and I'll use weight as the metric and the point of reference, because when you're calculating basic metabolic rate, your maintenance calories, you normally put in your height and your weight, and as a result, weight tends to be the metric on calorie maintenance. So again, there's a lot of hormonal issues that come in, a lot of genetic factors, a lot of metabolic factors. If you have a lot more muscle, you're going to burn more calories than something that has a lot higher amount of body fat, because lean muscle is very metabolic in terms of you need to consume calories just to feed that muscle. And to get into a calorie deficit, if your maintenance is 2,000 calories, for example, a deficit is anything that puts you below that 2,000. So that means that if you're walking around all day and you need 2,000 calories to stay the exact same way in terms of body composition, in terms of weight, which is the metric I'm going to use for this example, just because it's the easy metric for calorie deficit for explanation purposes. When you're walking around and you're burning 2,000 calories every day, if you're eating 2,000 calories, you'll stay the same weight and your body composition will stay the same way. Again, a lot of other factors that come into play. This doesn't take training into consideration, but that's kind of the general rule. If you're eating 1,800 calories every day, then you're in a calorie deficit. So you're eating less food than your body needs, which normally results in you losing weight or losing body fat. So that's one way to do it. You can get into a deficit through your nutrition and through your food. Another way to do it is if your maintenance is 2,000 calories and you're eating 2,000 calories, but you're burning 200 or 300 calories from walking or from resistance training, that's also getting you into a deficit. So in theory, you should be able to lose body fat or lose weight from doing that as well. There's also the combination. You can consume 2,200 calories, but you're in a deficit because you're burning 400 calories every day. So you're actually in a 400 calorie deficit. Your body isn't as straightforward as 1 + 1 = 2, because if that was the case, everybody would just go into a deficit and their body composition would change overnight. For a lot of people, it's the foundation pillar of losing body fat, because if you're eating too many calories, you will not lose body fat, you will not lose weight. And again, weight and body fat aren't the same thing. Weight is reducing numbers on a scale. Losing body fat or reducing body fat is losing fat on your body. They're not the same thing. But I'll use them interchangeably here, because when we talk calorie deficit and we talk calorie maintenance, sometimes people kind of overlap weight and fat loss. But in the context of this example, once you're in a deficit, you should be able to change composition to reduce body fat or lose weight. That being said, there's other factors that come into play here. Your way in which your body changes is very much going to be the food choices that you make as opposed to the amount of calories you take in. And I spoke on last week's episode of the podcast on the different diets, and I would definitely check that one out if you're someone who's wondering about calorie deficits, calorie maintenances, calorie surpluses in general, because I spoke about IIFYM, which is if it fits your macros, which basically is the nutritional strategy that it doesn't matter where your carbohydrates, fats, or protein comes from, as long as you hit your daily amounts. It doesn't matter whether you get them from Pop-Tarts or you get them from protein bars or you get them from supplements. It doesn't matter where your calories come from as long as you hit those numbers. This is where health and fitness and body composition can tend to sway a small bit, because if you're in a calorie deficit eating crappy foods, and you can get into a calorie deficit eating McDonald's or eating fast food, you can 100% get into a calorie deficit that way. And you may lose a little bit of body fat, you may lose a little bit of weight because you're still walking around and you're burning more calories than you're consuming, but your body composition won't change as well. You also won't remove body fat from places like stubborn areas. When you understand the chemical makeup of hydrogenated oils, trans fatty acids, the things that make up fast foods, their chemical makeup are foreign to the body. So trans fatty acids being particular poison for the body, they're probably the only thing that I can't argue an opposite side for in terms of a potential benefit for people, because they're poison. And trans fatty acids, if you understand the chemical makeup, and I spoke about this in the nutrition section of my book, The Fitness Mindset, that trans is the Latin for opposite side. And if you see the chemical makeup of a fatty acid, it's got its hydrogen ions. And what happens with a trans fatty acid, that hydrogen ion is on the opposite side. So what happens is when your body consumes those foods, as soon as it takes in trans fatty acids, it shuttles it into fat stores so that it's away from vital organs. So that's why it consistently increases your stubborn fat stores, and it doesn't get metabolically processed well. That's why that type of food doesn't give you energy. You eat fast food and you feel sluggish and tired after. It's because your body's not using, one, it doesn't have any nutrients in it anyways, but it also isn't using it to burn through because of safety reasons. Your body is evolved to keep you alive, and when it takes in a food substance that it doesn't understand, like a trans fatty acid, it's keeping it away from vital organs and putting it into fat stores where it's safely tucked away. Your body isn't evolved to keep you lean and keep you muscular or lose body fat. Your body's evolved to keep you alive. So that's what happens when you consume things like trans fatty acids. So you can go into a deficit through eating fast food, and you can eat 1,000 calories of fast food and it might put you into a deficit, but your composition of your body won't change. Your fat pockets in your stubborn stores around your stomach or your lower abs or your lower back or your glutes or your ass or your hips, that'll all stay put largely. And you'd have to go into quite a heavy deficit to get that down with that kind of diet. So understanding that the food choices you make and combining that with a calorie deficit is where the real gold is. Because if you can get into a calorie deficit through using high quality foods and nutrient dense foods, complex carbohydrates, your oats, your sweet potatoes, your quinoa, your rice, complete protein sources, your chicken, your fish, your red meat, or if you're vegan, you're using essential amino acid combinations where you're combining different seeds and legumes, so you're getting all your essential amino acids. Essential meaning amino acids that your body can't make by itself. You need to get them from food or supplements. Healthy fats, your omega-3 fatty acids from oily fish or from flaxseed or from pumpkin seeds. You're getting nutrient dense foods that has all the vitamins and minerals that your body needs in order to keep your energy levels high, in order to repair muscles that you're tearing down in workouts, and in order to make sure that you're functioning on an energy level that is literally the way your body is designed to produce energy, as opposed to consuming things like trans fatty acids or fast foods or crappy food ingredients that actually don't provide your body with any energy. So when you combine that with a calorie deficit, that's normally, in my opinion, the most optimal way to change your body composition. Then getting into the resistance training of 6 days a week and 3 days a week of cardio, that's quite a lot of training. Just to give a little bit of context, when I'm working with people in my BKF online program, sometimes I'll have somebody doing 6 days a week, and it varies, but they tend to be in the minority. Generally 4 days a week or 5 days a week, depending on the lifestyle and schedule of each person, tends to be enough. Training is the highest end of quality over quantity. You are way better off doing 3 sessions a week for 20 minutes a session that you're going hell for leather, doing exactly what you need to do, getting your heart rate up or tearing resistance on the muscle. That is quality session than doing 8 sessions a week where you're on your phone for 20 minutes in between sets. And there's people that do that. That's why I use them for an example. We've all probably seen them in the gym. Someone that's, working for body composition but takes 6 minutes between sets when they're texting somebody back. That's quantity over quality. And don't ever confuse the difference that because you're in the gym for 2 hours doesn't mean that you were doing 2 hours worth of work in the gym. In my opinion, the optimal time for the majority of people is going to be that 4 to 5 days a week, 45 to 60 minutes maximum in a workout. And that includes your cardio, that includes your resistance training, that includes everything. As long as your nutrition is right, you are going to get amazing results with that style of training system, regardless of your starting point. Some people will need significantly less. Some people will need more for mental issues, for mental benefits, where they'll do a 6 session because they mentally feel better that they need it. Or somebody that's preparing for a bodybuilding show or a bikini show, you may need to do significantly more. Or someone that's a professional athlete or performing at a near professional level. Some of my GA players, particularly some of my inter-county guys, or may as well be professional athletes with their training regimen. They're in the 5%. And 6 days a week, 7 days a week in some cases, where they've structured in recovery weeks where they have a significant amount of downtime to make sure that they don't get central nervous systemly overtrained or muscularly overtrained so the performance doesn't suffer. But for the majority of people, 6 days a week with 3 days a week of walking as cardio, again, by all means walk. One of the best things to probably come out of fitness over the last 5 years has been that 10,000 step rule, that people are like, well, I'm going to try and hit my 10,000 steps with my Fitbit or my Apple Watch or my phone app. That's a brilliant thing to do. People were designed to walk. So for the majority of people, that's going to benefit them regardless of what the resistance training is in the gym. But getting into a deficit, using your food and using your nutrition is going to be absolutely crucial for your energy levels in general. Because if you're not using high quality food and you're training 6 days a week, your energy levels are going to suffer in the gym. So your actual output's not going to be that high because you're just not going to have the fuel in your body to be able to do the workouts. So I would look at, again, it's always goal dependent. I assume fat loss is the goal when you're going into a calorie deficit. I would make sure that you look at your nutrition first. You can get your nutrition calorie deficit through your diet alone, where you go into a deficit through your nutrition, which means you don't need to do that much training technically. Or you can keep your calories a little bit higher and you can do a little bit more training, which is my personal preference. I'm a bigger fan in keeping calories higher, keep fueling workouts, making sure the output in your gym or in your home workouts are good, and then getting your deficit through training. Personally, I'm a fan of that, but it works either way. And then everything outside of that would be extra. So your cardio, your walking, your 30 minutes a day, or 30 minutes 3 days a week, by all means factor that in. Your feedback's going to come from how your body composition is changing, and if you're responding and you're happy with the way you're looking and the way that your body is changing, particularly if it's changing slowly and gradually, which is key. If you drop a lot of weight or a lot of body fat in the first 10 days or 2 weeks, you're not going to be able to sustain that long term, or realistically it was probably muscle glycogen from reducing your carbohydrates and pulling water out of your body. It's probably why you're that significantly leaner in that short amount of time, which happens with a lot of people with juice diets or bar diets or calorie restricted diets, where you go from eating a normal 200 grams of carbs every day to drinking 2 bars or drinking 2 shakes or eating 2 bars, where now you don't have enough water pulled underneath the muscle, and as a result you're significantly leaner in a short period of time. Your weight drops, and you think that, oh, well, I've lost a load of weight, I've lost a load of body fat. You haven't. You've just lost a lot of water weight from pulling that carbohydrate out of your body. So that's something to be aware of. Slow and steady, the ASAP fable, slow and steady wins the race. Gradually reducing your body fat, gradually changing your body composition means that you're going to be able to keep it off long term. There's an old Chinese proverb that you build a wall quick, it falls down quick. You build your body quick, it falls down quick. You lose body fat fast, you're going to put it back on fast. Do it slow and steady and gradually, and consistently progressing week over week. And over 6 weeks, over 8 weeks, over 12 weeks, your body composition can completely change. And as a result, you'll be able to keep progressing because of what's brought you there in the first place. Whatever brought you to the ball game in the first place, continually do that long term if you're able to stick with that process and you're enjoying it. If you're in a calorie deficit with foods that you enjoy, that are in alignment with your goals, that you're able to stick to sustainably long term, and you're doing a resistance training program 4 or 5 or 6 days a week, and you're enjoying that and your body's responding, and you're doing 3 days a week of 30 minutes of cardio where you're walking, and you're consistently able to do that, your body is responding week on week, you're losing body fat, your composition of your muscle is changing, you're feeling better, your energy levels are good, your sleep is good, and you're able to consistently do that. That's process. And when you're enjoying the process, you can stick to that long term. So that would be my advice. You'll get direct feedback, because if you're binging at weekends, you probably haven't fixed your nutrition during the week. There's something off there. If you're binging out on biscuits or chocolate every night, there's probably something off in your calorie restriction during the day. Either you have a magnesium deficiency, or your blood sugars are out of balance, or you're under eating your food and your body's starving itself and thinks that it needs to get some sugars quickly to survive. Your body will give you feedback on whether it's working or not. If you're consistently overtrained and you're not sleeping well and you lose your sex drive and you just feel really irritable and moody, you may be overtraining. Your central nervous system may be taking too much of a pounding from 6 days of resistance training, and you need to scale it back. Your body will give you feedback on whether what you're doing is working or not. So that would be my advice on a deficit, on training 6 days a week and 3 days a week on 30 minutes of cardio. So I hope it helps anybody that is basically wondering about how to design their own training strategy to go into a calorie deficit. Same applies in calorie surplus. It just goes in the reverse. If your body is giving you the feedback and responding in the way that you want, keep doing it. If it's not, you need to change it. Okay, next question comes in from Powers131. I'm trying to switch from counting calories to intuitive eating while eating a mainly whole food diet and meat, but I'm worried I'll overeat on things like nuts, beans, and seeds, etc. Any advice would be appreciated. So the episode I did last week on Monday, was it Monday or Friday? I can't remember. I have my days all mixed up. But the episode I did last week on the best diet, I want you, Powers, to skip forward to the part on IIFYM, which is if it fits your macros, and clean eating. I paired those back to back for a reason, because it'll probably help you a lot from somebody that goes from counting calories to intuitive eating. So the danger with intuitive eating, or some other people call it clean eating, where you're sticking with whole food and good quality foods. The danger with intuitive eating and clean eating is when you're not sure of what calories or macros you're consuming, it's very easy to overeat or undereat. And when body composition is your goal, you probably want to have some idea of what you're consuming. Again, performance is a little bit different. If you're a triathlete or a marathon runner or an endurance athlete, it's it's just keeping yourself fueled. And as long as your performance doesn't drop, because that's your metric. Performance is your metric as an athlete if that's your primary goal and you don't care about the way you look. And there's people that I work with in my GA Lean Body program, our metric is both. Our way of tracking results is, right, your performance has improved, your energy levels are better, you're stronger, you're fitter, but you also have built size in your chest. You also now have a six-pack, your body fat's reduced. So our metric is both. Some athletes don't care about the way that they look, and it's why those people I generally recommend just doing a traditional strength and conditioning program, because you're just focusing on the main metric of improving performance. That when body composition is the goal and you're trying to lose body fat or build muscle or change the way that your composition of your muscle looks, not knowing how many calories you're consuming, not knowing how many macros you're consuming, doesn't lend itself that well to that strategy. So what I would probably do here is have a baseline and an idea of what amount of calories and macros you're consuming. And I know people switch to clean eating and intuitive eating because it can promote a healthier relationship with food, particularly if you've gone from counting calories and you feel like your brain was going to explode from putting one more note into MyFitnessPal. And I get that can come. And I work off intuitive eating. I work off clean eating largely myself. But I also have a fairly decent idea of the amount of calories I'm consuming and macros I'm consuming. So what I would advise, and my personal opinion on this, is anybody that switches to clean eating or intuitive eating, don't do it blindly. Particularly if body composition is your goal. Again, if you're just looking for health, you're just looking for satiation, or you're just looking for performance, your metric is different. Your feedback is different on what's going to make it a positive result for you. If you're just looking for health and you're looking for energy, that's pretty easy feedback. If your health improves, then you keep doing your intuitive eating and eat as you want. If your performance improves, you keep eating the way that you want, and your performance keeps going up, then you keep doing that. It becomes a positive feedback loop. Eat what you want, stick with good foods, performance increases, and then you just keep doing that. But if you're not changing your composition and losing body fat or toning up or building muscle in the way that you want, it's a sign that you need to track it a little bit more closely. So what I would advise, even if only for a week or two, and I do this with a lot of people that come through my BKF online program that I have in the opening video, that here are your calories, here are your macros, here are the foods and the timings, but track it for a week so that you have an idea that this is what 50 grams of rice looks like, or this is what 150 grams of fish looks like, so that you have an idea and you have a baseline. And then by all means, switch to using your eye, because you'll be within a ballpark of it then, and as long as your training is good, you should still respond. So that's what I would advise doing. I would, for the first week, 10 days, 2 weeks, even though you're switching to whole food and meat and different types of nuts, beans and seeds, I would track the calories on those foods for a week or two and have a baseline of what you want to consume. I spoke in 3 episodes ago on calculating your maintenance calories and whether to go into a surplus or a deficit and how to do that. And I spoke a little bit in the previous question on calorie deficit. And whatever your goals are, reverse engineer your nutritional strategy off the back of that. If you need 2,000 calories to stay the same weight and the same composition in theory, and you're trying to put on size, you need to eat more than 2,000 calories. If you're trying to lose body fat or lose size or lose weight, you need to eat less than 2,000 calories. So knowing those numbers arms you with the knowledge on how to fuel the clean eating. And from a personal experience, it's probably my favorite strategy of intuitive clean eating combined with a little bit of finding what macros and calories you need to consume, because it gives you the best of both worlds. You get nutrient-dense foods, you feel really full and satiated, your energy levels tend to be really good, and you don't end up over or under eating calories because you know what you're consuming, or you have a ballpark of what you're consuming. So that's what I would do. I would calculate how many calories you need. Do you need to go into a surplus? Do you need to go into a deficit? Do you want to eat around maintenance, which is what I normally do right now? And then using that and fueling that with quality whole foods and meat and different nuts, beans and seeds, and then put it all together, and hopefully that will work. Okay, next question came in from Snapchat, a rare one from Snapchat, just because I'm not spending as much time on there. And this came in from a young guy. He said not to use his name. I want to look more like you. Please don't say my name because my friends are on my Snapchat and listen to your podcast. What supplements should I use? So, firstly, understanding that living your life exactly like me doesn't necessarily mean that your body will change its composition to look exactly like me. There's a lot of different factors. Genetically, historically, I'm nearly 18 years lifting weights, so I have a lot of muscle maturity from resistance training. Genetically, I'm short and stocky and grew up on a farm, so I put on muscle quite easily. I can put on body fat too, but I do put on muscle quite easily, particularly because I understand how my body responds to nutrition. And even living your lifestyle like me doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to look like me. And it's the same with me. I can live my lifestyle like Cristiano Ronaldo, do what he does, train how he trains, and it doesn't mean that I'm going to get leaner and get that frame of Cristiano Ronaldo. So before I get into that and say what supplements should I use, I'm going to let you know that even if you trained and ate and used supplements the exact same way as me, that doesn't necessarily mean you'll look like me. This is one of my biggest pet peeves on social media, is when somebody puts up a program, a fitness influencer or someone that is in fitness, and they're like, well, do this 6-week program and you'll look exactly like me. I'm like, that is fucking horseshit, because you can't do that. It's just one, it's unrealistic, and it sets a really unrealistic expectation. And they say in business that you can only sell dog shit once. And that's kind of how I feel when I ever see that advertised, because that's not what's going to happen. You're not going to look like that person by using this supplement, by using this nutritional strategy, by following their program. One of the reasons, and I'm not saying my way is the best way, and there's other trainers who have probably better ways and ways that are more adapted to certain people, but one of the reasons that I regularly say on the podcast to become the best version of you and the strongest version of you and literally change your body and be the best that you can be is because you're working against yourself then. You're working against a metric that's achievable for success, because you can ask yourself that question: am I in better shape than I was a week ago? Am I in better shape than I was a month ago? Am I in better shape than I was 6 months ago? If the answer is yes, then you keep progressing and moving forward. If the answer is no, you need to change something and make sure that there's a stimulus in there that's going to make you a stronger version or change your composition faster because you're not happy with the progress you're getting. That is realistic because you're comparing yourself against yourself. You're comparing yourself against where you were. And I'm the first one to say, and I regularly say on the podcast, that comparison is the thief of joy. And when you're comparing yourself against external things or external people, or comparing your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 20 because they've been training for 20 years and this is your first year, that's going to lead itself to you being miserable by constantly comparing yourself to other people. However, I'm a massive fan of comparing yourself against yourself, because that's a success metric that you can continually improve on. Are you better than you were a week ago? Are you better than you were a month ago? Are you better than you were a year ago? That goes for your mindset, that goes for your body composition, that goes for your life in general. In this context, that's why I'm going to talk on my favorite supplements to use that I use, because that's kind of how the way the question was worded. But it's not a case of use these supplements and you'll look like me. And that is a lot of influencer marketing on social media is built off that premise. That's the reason that you get amazing contracts with supplement companies, because we have an associative bias in our brain. It's a cognitive bias where our system one makes an association with somebody. And we've been doing this for years. This has been in back when television was the main form of media. Now it's mostly on the phone, Netflix, laptop. People have their OTT with Netflix and they're on demand. But 20 years ago, it was influencer marketing with an A-list movie celebrity endorsing, L'Oreal, or endorsing some form of product. That's influencer marketing. It's just modern day fitness influencer marketing in the supplement industry is an amazing, attractive guy or girl holding a supplement, and we make this associative bias in our brain that, well, if I use that supplement, I'll look like them. I made that mistake so many times. I bought every fucking supplement from BSN when I was 19 years old because I wanted to look like Anthony Preciano. I wanted to look like Brandon Carter, I think was his name. I've forgotten it now off the top of my head. I wanted to look like Julian Greyo, who was a BSN martial artist who was shredded and had an 8-pack. And I bought everything from BSN. I bought their fucking Cell Mass. I bought their Explode. I bought their Nitrix. I bought their Atrofex. I bought all of their supplements thinking that, well, these guys are using it. If I use these supplements, I'll look like these guys. And by all means, they did work. Some of those supplements were really, really good. But they didn't make me look like the guy who had been training for 20 years. But in my brain, that was the association I had made. And we do it subconsciously. That's why it's a system 1 bias. Daniel Kahneman talks in his book, Thinking Fast and Slow, about our system 1, our automatic thought process, our a instant reaction when we see something or think of something, and then our system 2, our slow reflective thought on when we actually take a step back and evaluate a circumstance or situation. And our system 1, our cognitive bias, our association with a supplement and then the guy or girl that are with it, that's hardwired. It's not conscious in a lot of cases. We don't do that conscious, and even if we do, we go, oh, maybe I won't look like that person if I use that supplement. But the fact that we've seen the association with them, we make that. It's a very, very powerful marketing strategy and is used very effectively by a lot of companies. It's why the models get paid so well for endorsing those products. And knowing that those supplements will probably help. Like, I'm a huge fan of supplements, and I'll talk through some of my personal favorites, but they're not going to make you look like that person. They're not going to make you, I can put up my favorite omega-3 or my favorite pre-workout or my favorite green tea extract, and taking that's not going to make you look like me, because there's lots of different, you may not even want to look like me, but the people that will see that and go, well, I want to, have my legs like Brian, or I want to look like him, or that girl that's got amazing glutes. If I take this pre-workout, I'll look like her. This fat burner, I'll look like her. That's not the way that it works. So understanding that's really, really important, because it can be confusing, and overriding those cognitive biases, those things that aren't supporting you, and just bringing it into conscious awareness sometimes is enough to make you realize that, oh shit, that's probably not what's going to help me. Even though it may support my training, when you set your expectation bar so ridiculously high that's completely unachievable, by taking this supplement, you're not going to look like that guy or girl that's been training for 20 years, that looks amazing, that probably dieted for the last 8 weeks to look incredible for that photo shoot. You're not going to get that by taking their fat burner for 3 weeks. So just be consciously aware of that before you buy any supplement. They do work, and I'll talk about my personal favorites, but just be aware that is very, very important, because it's just not going to support you long term. And this podcast is about finding the things that serve and support you and then doubling down on them. That one's not going to support you. That thought process isn't going to support you. That thought process of, I want to look like you, or I want to look like this person, what supplement should I use, or what training should I do, or what nutrition should I do? That's not the way. That's not the right question. And Tony Robbins says that you ask better questions, you'll get better answers. The question isn't, I want to look like this person, what do they do, and I'll copy them. The question is, I want to look like this. I want to build my chest. I want to build my legs. I want to be leaner. What do I need to do? Because there's a lot of different ways to get to the end result. It's not necessarily just copying somebody that looks a certain way because they may have genetic factors that make them look that way. They may be using enhancers that make them look that way. They may be dieting and really extreme restricted eating to look that way for those photos, and you don't see that behind the scenes. So there's a lot of stuff going on there that we see in isolation, snapshot in time from a photo shoot or from an Instagram photo, or one that may be over filtered, etc. And we think that that's the reality, and that may not be reality. So just be mindful of that, because that thought process isn't supportive, it isn't serving, and it's not the right question to ask, because the right question to ask is, these are my end goals, this is what I want to achieve, how do I do that? And then working backwards, that works with the majority of people. Like, you want to build size, follow our hypertrophy program. You want to get faster, start working on glute activation and building that into your training program. If you want to build a bigger bum, make sure that you're activating and building your mind muscle connection with your glutes so that you can do that. You want to lose body fat, make sure you get into a deficit. Use the trial and true and tested methods that work for the majority of people, as opposed to just copying that this is what, John does, or Sarah does, or Laura does, or Pete does, because they look a certain way and you want to look like them. That would be my advice. Then the supplements you should use, I'll tell you the ones that I use, but the ones that you should use is always reverse engineering your goals. If you want to build muscle, use the ones that have been most scientifically backed and researched to show that they can enhance muscle building if your nutrition's on point. If you don't have your diet right, no supplement on the planet works, because supplements supplement what you're missing in your nutrition. So making sure that you're eating enough calories, getting enough amino acids to build muscle, making sure you're in a deficit to lose body fat, but then using the most scientifically backed research supplements to help that. Things like creatine, things like whey protein, things like branched chain amino acids or leucine to a degree, things like beta-alanine for building muscle, buffering lactic acid, losing body fat, things like caffeine to increase lipolysis, green tea extract that will increase your TDEE, your total daily expenditure, that you're burning more calories throughout the day. Things like L-carnitine tartrate that can help push fat cells in the mitochondria to be burnt for fuel. They're the most scientifically backed. The ones that I use personally, religiously every day, probably aren't the ones that are going to support somebody in composition. They work indirectly for body composition, but they're not my priority. My priority right now is performance and health and energy levels. I personally don't need to do a lot for body composition because of that daily habits that I built, the nutritional food choices that I make. It makes it very, very easy to stay lean and stay relatively in shape. And then with my training with an Ironman next year, my output is quite high, so I stay relatively lean. So the supplements I use aren't necessarily creatine. They're not necessarily green tea extract. The ones I'm using right now is a probiotic. I use the Super 8 Udo's Choice probiotic for my gut health, which makes sure my mood stays on track, make sure my digestion stays on track. I use an omega-3, an extra strength omega-3 to reduce the inflammation in my body, to improve cognitive health, to make sure that my heart is functioning properly. And then outside of that, things like magnesium that help me sleep. They wind down my central nervous system, that allow me to recover. When you understand the importance of sleep in recovery, and it's just that foundation pillar, probably just above nutrition, it becomes a priority, as opposed to, even for me, creatine or green tea extract to build muscle or get leaner. So magnesium is something I use. And then the last one is probably GABA, which again is a sleep supplement that can enhance your body's ability to unwind before bed and can help you drop into a deeper sleep. So they're the supplements I use, but they're not the ones I'd recommend for a 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old looking to build muscle and lose body fat or improve performance in any way. For me, they're the goals that help me fill the gaps in my nutrition. The reason I use an omega-3 is because I'm not eating that much oily fish right now. The reason I use a probiotic is because I'm not eating that many fermented foods right now. The reason that I use magnesium is because, particularly when I was training for Marathon des Sables and now a little bit with Ironman, if I'm consuming sugar, I'm aware that I'm pulling the magnesium out of my body and need to supplement it back in. So you're supplementing what you're missing in your nutrition. The days that I know I'm not eating any red meat, I'll supplement with a vitamin B12. You're filling the gaps with your supplements for what you're not getting in your food, or else you're using the most scientifically backed performance enhancers that you can use that will support your training and will enhance your body's ability to get to your goals faster. Creatine for muscle building, whey protein for muscle building, green tea extract or L-carnitine for fat loss. You're using supplements based off your goals, and you're not just using them because I use them, or you're not just using them because your favorite fitness person uses them, because that supplement may work tremendously well for that person because that's the supplement they need. It may not be the one you need. So reverse engineer whatever your goals are, choose your supplements based off that, and I hope this has provided a lot of value, regardless of gender, regardless of age, for anyone that's had that associated bias with supplements or is curious about how to choose their supplements and basically what they're for. So I hope that helped. Okay, next question comes in from Paddy83. I moved to New York from Ireland 9 years ago. I've achieved so much since coming here, not financially, but as a person, and I want your advice. I feel I already know the answer, and I think I'm missing something. I'm an electrician with a fantastic job, great benefits, vacation, medical, pension. I can't help but think I'm wasting my talent by not going out to set up my own business, and I fear walking away from the security of my current job. So I wanted to answer this question on the podcast because I think you could replace Paddy's name with a lot of different names. And I think you could replace electrician with a lot of different jobs, because I think this is something that comes up very, very commonly for a lot of people. And I'm going to come at this from a couple of different angles. because I've lived it myself. And I'll use myself because you're your own best example. Some of you know my backstory, and hopefully I'll be able to offer it from a fresh perspective here to provide value by offering it from a different angle. And I know it's a very, very common thing. So the first thing I'm going to offer here is, when you're working in an industry for 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 15 years, you have to be very, very careful that you don't get caught in what's called a sunk cost fallacy. And that is an economics term where you throw good money after bad, and you convince yourself that you need to keep doing this job because it's what you've done for so long. People do it in relationships as well, where they're in a relationship and they're miserable, but they're like, well, we've been going out for 5 years. You know, I've invested so much time in this relationship. I can't leave it now. I fucking see that all the time, unfortunately. And you see people doing it when they're degrees. They come out of college with a 3 or 4 year degree and go, well, I have to work in this industry. Even though I hate engineering or I hate accounting, I have to work in this industry because I have a degree in it. That's a sunk cost fallacy. That's using past things that you've done to make future decisions, which is fucking ludicrous. Because when you're making and using what you've done in the past to make decisions about what you do in the present, which is going to lead into what you do in the future, and you're miserable and unhappy doing it, that is fucking ludicrous. So one of the things I would offer to anybody listening, and I've spoken about regularly, and a lot of you have read my book, The Fitness Mindset, and in the mindset section, I speak about getting your ladder against the right wall, that you're better off being at the bottom of the ladder against the right wall than halfway up the ladder against the wrong wall. And the analogy I normally use, or the story I normally use, is when I was teaching. And even though I loved it as a job and I loved the kids, I enjoyed my school, I liked where I was, I knew I was going to a job, and I knew every Monday I was going back to work, and I knew every Friday it was the weekend. And I was climbing that ladder, but it wasn't what I was meant to do. It wasn't where my internal compass was pointed. It wasn't what I tap danced to work every morning to do. And I knew it wasn't whatever gifts were given to me and whatever belief system you have, whether it's God or the universe or energies or whatever the fuck you believe. It doesn't matter. Whatever belief system serves you, double down on it. For me, it was an internal compass. I knew I wasn't what I was meant to do. And when I started my fitness business, it was starting at the bottom of the ladder against the right wall, and not letting previous decisions and life patterns and behavioral patterns dictate, and time that I'd spent, what I thought at the time wasted, dictate what I did going forward. And there's a reason that it took me nearly 2 years to go from working as a teacher and working as a personal trainer at nighttime to working full-time in fitness, was because I didn't want to give up the 4 years I had spent doing a degree and then getting a postgraduate in teaching and then having a job in teaching. I thought because I had spent so much time and so much energy and given so much to that part of my life, I'm like, well, I can't leave teaching. I've spent so much time doing this, not realizing that that wasn't what my path was meant for. It wasn't what I was meant to do. So the first thing I will offer, regardless of where you're at, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's in a job, whether it's your fitness, regardless of what it is, do not let your decisions about what you've done in the past dictate the decision you make today, which is going to dictate what you do going forward. That is living off a sunk cost fallacy. If you're miserable or unhappy, regardless of what you've done in the past, it doesn't matter. What you've done or who you've been in the past doesn't need to be who you are right now, and it definitely doesn't need to be who you are in the future. So do never make a decision off a sunk cost fallacy. Never make a relationship decision. Never make a job decision. Never make any decision you make in your life off what you've done in the time you spent. Because just because you've done it for 5 years doesn't mean you need to do it for the next 15 years. That's number one. The next thing I'm going to offer here is the freedom and fear. And one of the things that has changed my life most positively in the last 5 years is not telling myself the story of letting fear be disguised as practicality. And for years, I let that decision dictate the directions that I took. I used fear and I had it disguised as practicality, that it's not practical to leave a good, safe teaching job where I'll always have an income coming week by week. It's not smart to do that. It's not practical to do that. letting fear of the unknown be disguised as practicality. And that's what I did. I told myself that story time and time again. I knew I wanted to do my own business. I knew I wanted to be in fitness, but I would let my fear be disguised as practicality. When you understand that security is normally on the opposite side of freedom, and they're kind of like a weighing scale. If you picture a weighing scale, the traditional weighing scale that are balanced, security is on one side, freedom is on the other side. And the more freedom you have with what you're doing, the less security you feel you tend to have. And the more security you have, the less freedom. So, for example, if you work a 9-to-5 job in an office, you're quote unquote secure, you have a paycheck coming in, but you don't have a lot of freedom on what you do in terms of your time. You need to be in the office 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. You don't have a load of freedom. On the opposite side, if you're an entrepreneur or self-employed, you have a lot of freedom with the hours that you work. If you're a personal trainer, you tend to dictate a lot of your hours, either around yourself or around your clients, but you don't have the security of the same amount of money coming in every week. Knowing that is just one way of seeing the world, and that's an opinion. That's an opinion and perspective. Everything we hear is an opinion, not a truth, and everything we see is a perspective, not a fact. I actually completely think the opposite right now. I think having a 9-to-5 job where you're secure with a paycheck coming through every week, where you've got a boss over you, I personally don't think that's very free or very secure, because you're giving somebody else permission to potentially take away your job. And even in government jobs, you have a little bit more security, but again, less freedom. For me, I like the mindset and reframe. And to be honest, this is a story I had to tell myself in order to make that final jump. And it was the figurative jumping out of a plane and hoping the parachute would open on the way down. And one of the thought philosophies I had to reframe for myself to initially make that jump was that, well, if I'm working for somebody else, they could sack me in the morning. I could lose my job in the morning. Whereas if I'm working for myself, the more hours I put in, the more people I serve, the more value I provide, the more secure my job will be, because I'm providing more value and service to people. That was a reframed thought process that helped me a lot. And whether it's right or wrong, it was the belief system. And again, I don't truly believe anything is right or wrong. I believe if it serves you, keep it. If it doesn't, get rid of it. But that belief system and that reframe on the way you have to see it, and when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And when I was able to reframe that change, that actually working a normal teaching job where I had somebody over me, they could sack me in the morning. They could give me my 2 weeks notice and I'd have to leave, or they could give me my term notice and I'd have to leave. And I realized that's not very secure. Where if I get up every morning myself and get my work done, and I provide value to people, and I learn and educate myself on nutrition, on training, and I learn how to provide and run a business with marketing and advertising and sustainability techniques that allow me to grow and scale, and all these things that are in my control, that's secure. Because the amount of work I put in, the more money I'll make, or the more impact I'll have. And I'm a believer in I'm impact over income. But a weird thing happens when you have more impact. The more impact you have, the more income you make. And the more income you make, the more impact you have, because you're not making decisions based out of money. And then you have security off the back end of that. When you make that leap and you make that jump and you make that reframe of the way you see it, there was a chance when I was teaching, and I'll use myself because you're your own best example. When I was teaching, I was making a living. And there's an old thought process that traditional education will make you a living, self-education will make you a fortune. And that's what happened in terms of, and again, success is subjective. For me, success is never having to worry about paying bills. And I'm very fortunate. I make more now than I've ever made. I make a living that I would have only dreamed of in my early 20s. And it came off the back of taking that jump. It came off the back of reframing that security, that when you control something and the amount of effort you put in, you're going to get the results off the back end. And one of the reasons I love fitness so much, and I use it as an analogy and a anchor point for this idea, is the more work you put in the gym, when you follow your nutritional strategy, when you follow your training program, when you use the right supplements and you do it continuously day after day, your body changes. What you put in, you get out. Business is the exact same. when you put in the work and you educate yourself and you surround yourself with the right mentors or the right mastermind groups, or you read the right books, or you listen to the right podcasts, or you consume the right information of people who have done what you want to do. When you can see it, you can be it. And when you follow the right people on who have achieved what you're trying to achieve, you can fully control that. And as a result, when you provide more value and more service to more people, you have more control over what you do each day. And as a result, you have more security from that. That's just a way of seeing it. And the reason I offer it here is because I had to change my entire thought process because of the way I was brought up, the experiences I had, and what I saw around me. And you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. You become an average of what you've experienced. You become an average of the circumstances that you were brought up in, because that's the way you think it needs to be. And I went through the thought process that you go to college, you get a degree, you get a job, you get married, you get a wife, you have 2.3 kids, then you retire, you travel, and you die. That was weirdly and subconsciously my way that I thought the world worked. And as I read more books, as I talked to mentors, as I consumed more information, I realized that this is a perspective. This is an opinion. This isn't truth. This isn't reality. This isn't fact. And you're entitled to your opinion. You're not entitled to your facts. And that wasn't a fact, that was the way the world had to be. I was just choosing to see it that way, or more so, I was conditioned to see it that way. And now I make a choice to see it in another way. Reframing that is the first step. After that, it's asking yourself, what would you regret more? And if you're a long-term listener to the podcast, or if you're a first-time listener, maybe your first time hearing this from me, I work and make a lot of my life decisions off the 97-year-old rule. If I'm lying on my deathbed at 97 years old, what would I regret more? I break my life into 4 quadrants. I break it into health, wealth, love, and fulfillment. So my health, my energy levels, my mental health, my physical well-being, my wealth, my bank account, my love, my relationships, my family, my fulfillment, the things that I get to do every day, my podcast, the books that I write, and trying to help and serve the world. The 97-year-old rule combined with this is what helps me make a lot of my life decisions. I look back on my deathbed at 97 years old and I ask myself, what would I regret more? When I'm making decisions based out of those 4 quadrants, is it moving that needle forward? Am I making my health better? Am I making my wealth better? Am I making my love better? The things that are important to me, the relationships in my life. Am I being more fulfilled? Am I helping and serving and making the world a better place because I was here? When you're moving that needle forward, it makes other decisions very fucking easy to make, because you don't care. If it's not moving the needle forward, you don't do it. If it's not enhancing those buckets, you don't do it. If it's not improving those 4 quadrants, you don't do it. It makes it very fucking binary. It's yes or no to a decision. When you combine that with looking back on what you'd regret more, and there's a great book, and I've forgotten the name of the author, it's called the Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. When you look back and ask yourself, what would you regret on your 97-year-old deathbed? And for you, it may not be. You may do this test and realize that, do you know what? I would regret not building up a nest egg for myself and retiring early. And I like the job security that I have. But if you look back and go, fuck, I would regret not starting that business and helping people serve the world and making it a better place, because I have something more to offer and I feel that inside. And you may not feel that. You may not have that internal compass pointing in this direction. You may be hearing these words from me and that's not what lands with you, but something else fucking triggers. You may find that, shit, I need to get myself in shape, or shit, I need to get myself into a better relationship, or I need to do something that's moving my compass forward. When you have that and use that perspective of that 97-year-old rule and realize that the top 5 regrets of the dying, normally one of them that jumps to mind was making decisions based out of other people's opinion and not living life on your own terms, and 2 was not doing the things you wanted to do and letting other people dictate what you should do, how you should live, what job you should have, the people you should be around. Stop making decisions based out of other people. Stop comparing yourself to other people and what they're doing. listen to that voice. Listen to that internal compass, because it's fucking telling you what to do. And again, you can hear my animation in my voice because I'm speaking to a younger me, because I ignored that voice for so long. I fucking knew what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want to be in teaching long term. I knew I wanted to start a fitness business, but I let fear be disguised as practicality. I didn't break my life into the 4 quadrants and know what was moving my needles forward. I didn't use the 97-year-old rule where I'd look back on my deathbed and realize what I'd regret. I thought that life would go on forever. When you realize that it's not going to go on forever and that you're going to have regrets, try and go through your life minimizing those regrets. And you can do that now. You don't need to get to fucking 97 years old. That's scary. Not having income for a few months, yeah, fair enough. It's short-term scary. Being afraid of walking away from your job, that's short-term scary. Do you know what's more fucking scary? Is being 97 years old on your deathbed, looking back and regretting not having done what you knew you were supposed to do, not having been around the people you knew you were supposed to be around, not having done the things that you were put on this planet to do. That's fucking scary. One of the biggest regrets in life is meeting the person that you could have become. Do not go through your life and look back and regret that you didn't become the person that you could have become, because that's the biggest tragedy in life. And regardless of what decision you make, regardless of whether you stay as an electrician or in your regular job, or regardless of whether you're listening to this and you're in a relationship that you're not happy with, or regardless if you're not happy with your health or your fitness, it doesn't matter. If you are making those decisions and you're letting fear be disguised as practicality, and you're not making the choice and mapping your actions to your ambition, and you're not doing the right things daily that are moving the needles forward in the parts of your life that are important, I fucking guarantee you're going to regret it. So I'm not going to tell you what to do. It's your decision to make. The only thing I will offer is, do not look back in your life at 97 years old or 105 years old or 78 years old with regret that you should have done something, that you should have pursued that person, that you should have done that job, that you should have lived life this way, and that you didn't do it because of a story you told yourself, or you didn't do it because of words that came in and you let other people's opinions dictate the direction of your life. Other people's opinions do not have to become your reality, or you didn't do it out of fear disguised as practicality. That's what I'll offer, and the decision you make then is up to you. Okay, got a bit animated at the end of the last question, so you can tell that anytime I ever tend to get animated like that, I'm normally speaking to my younger self. There's a lot of words that I needed to hear at 22, 23, 24 that you can tell land with me for certain reasons. So I share them here and don't filter anything on the podcast, because I know they help people and your mess becomes your message. So I do hope that helped. And the swearing didn't bother you too much, because as the animated I get, the censor tends to come off a lot more. So I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed all of today's podcast. If you did and got any value from this, the only thing I will ask is you do one of two things, and I will love you forever. Is if you've listened to this, please tag me on your Instagram story. I love seeing those. They make my Mondays and Fridays when we do 2 episodes, and they make my Mondays because we come out every Monday. And it literally makes my day seeing those. So please tag me in your DM on Instagram story, or leave a review on iTunes. I read all of the podcast reviews that come in, because it gives me an idea on what you like, where to improve, and what we can do better. So a massive thank you again for listening. Hope you enjoyed. Catch you all next week.